Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Today's video is going to be about the update on the tank factory and what I've worked on and what we've done, and then also show you a little bit of doing cobblestone and the concrete work that we're going to have in here. So let's get started. We're going to jump right in with an update of how things are looking on the diorama. I know it's been a few days here, so I'll tell you what I've done and what I'm in the process of doing and what I plan on doing, all three of those here. So first of all, obviously a lot of questions about the broken building, the one that I dropped the other day, and I do have replacement parts coming for it, so it'll be here very, very soon, hopefully within the next week or so, and then I can start working on that part again. I know many of you said in the comments I should just glue it together, and normally I would have. The problem is there was a lot of shards that were coming out of the front that would have left giant gaps in the building, which would have looked weird. So it's easier just to get some new parts and fix it up and build it properly. Rest assured, I am going to be keeping those parts, and that'll be a nice destroyed building diorama somewhere down the road. So all that stuff is all somewhat safely put away and going to be used for another time. So let me show you what I've done in the last couple of days since I broke that building. I went ahead, and if you notice here, we've got a piece of plywood now underneath the base plates, and I've glued all 9 base plates down. And the only thing I've started painting is just, obviously this is all gray, that's just primer, that's not the actual color that it's going to be. The only thing I've actually truly started painting is this section of road, and I've left this side bare right here, and I'll kind of show you a little later on in the video how we're turning, you know, basic gray into the weathered effect that we have right here. These are a concrete cobblestone, so they're very, very perfectly made. And that's the way I designed, so we don't want to go too crazy with the coloring on it. And like I said earlier, all I've done on this is I've glued those down, and I've started to fill in all of the cracks between the different base plates with a little Ammo by MIG concrete. And I do have to put one more coat on there. All of these are just temporarily placed there just to show you guys how it's looking and how it's coming along with that. I do want to show you one thing I did work on. I just went ahead and built this thing. This is the Miniart German tractor, the D8506, model 1937. So I told you guys I wanted to have some kind of tractor tug that we would use around the factory. And here it is right here. Just did some mild weathering on it. Didn't want to go too crazy with it, and that's strictly because it's not out in the mud or anything. It's being used around a factory, so it'll have a little bit of dirt and stuff around it, but not crazy. And God, I really like the way this thing looks. This is a cool little piece of equipment, and we can use it anywhere around in the factory, towing that little you know, flatbed truck, things like that around there. So very happy with that piece. And I do have, of course, some more Miniart pieces that I want to work on as well, like the transport trucks, things like that around there. Now, as I mentioned, I am filling in all of the cracks area here with that. I do have to put another coat on. There are a few in the back there where the other building's going to go that it's actually going to get covered by the building, so I'm not too concerned with those. And anywhere there is kind of a bigger gap, that's what all this, you know, equipment like the cable reels or boxes and you know, cargo containers, all that kind of stuff can be placed all over the place. So if there's one that's kind of little extra egregious in how, you know, much of a gap there is there or how much of a step, we can put that on it there. And I tried my best to try to do a little bit of sanding to get them all to lay as flat as possible. It's really difficult on such big pieces, or you didn't want to sand off too much on one end or on the other and get it really messed up. So I'm really happy with the way it came out. Even the street right here, we did a little filing here to nail it down, and then re-scribed a little bit of the cobblestone just to get it looking good. And there'll be some kind of big vehicle in the front here anyway. And so this is just up, that's one of the parts of the buildings, but wanted to show you in the middle of painting these up. These look really good just in red oxide primer from Tamiya. We've got to put a few more coats on there, but those are really interesting. And one thing RT Diorama makes is a little support gantry, which this is something I might experiment doing, where we could line these up in a row like this, and this basically gets glued into place like this, if I could do it. And you put one out in the front here too, and it's basically, and then some cross members, and it's basically a transport system for getting heavy cargo out of things. And they sell a separate kit, but I was looking, I actually have the parts here to do that. Don't know if I'm going to do it on this particular building, but it's just, it looks very industrial that way. I've also started putting together some pipes and some things like that. We're going to be running all over the place. Those are basically just going to be some evergreen round tube that we'll use on it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm doing with this in the process of turning it into the cobblestone. So as you see in this front area here, I've just sprayed on it XF54, which is dark sea gray. That's our darker gray base coat. And with this kind of stuff, you want to go from dark to light. The dark colors go down first, and that way they'll fill in and make the shadows in between any of the blocks that we see down there, and then gradually build up to some of the lighter colors. So now I'm using XF19 Sky Gray on a big fat wide brush, and most of it taken out, and basically going to dry brush this on, and you'll see that all the detail really starts to pop out on this. And want to keep it going in random directions so you don't have any streaks any way, shape, or form that'll look too odd. And it's a little time consuming because you're not putting a lot on all at once, but I think there's a nice look once it's on there. While I'm letting that dry, almost forgot too to explain why there's this extra lip of plywood. So I went and glued down all 9 of the base plates on here and left purposely the extra piece of plywood sticking over the edge here because I do plan on adding more onto this, and it kind of leaves me a little bit of an option. If I decide not to, I can just slice this little piece right off. And if I do decide, which I'm really thinking I'm going to, what I can do is add another sheet of, little smaller sheet of plywood, attach the 2 on the bottom, and then the base plates will be in between 2 pieces of plywood here. So that way it'll carry it on both, and we should have a nice little surface. Because I'm thinking more that it's going to extend more to the right here. I did leave that same kind of gap in the back, that if we want to extend that even further back. Remembering none of the buildings, none of this stuff is attached yet. This is all just temporary. So once I see about getting that extra piece, then we'll add that on and add the extra piece of plywood. I know the diorama is going to grow a little bit in size, but a 2x3 max is something that I can certainly handle here in my store. So that would be a great size, I think, and show a lot of detail that we can add on to it. And now we're going to use Tamiya's dark brown panel liner, and we're going to put it in and start filling in all of the cracks. This way, this will emphasize all of those blocks again. And we can also use a little bit of extra thinner here, and then just start blotting that in there. And this really makes all of those blocks really pop back out again, give us an even a darker shadow than what the dark gray originally was. And then just keep dipping a little extra thinner in there to make it flow. And lastly, we're going to take a little bit of Ammo by Meg Streaking Grime and just put a little bit of a brown kind of dirty color into the cracks. Imagining that that's where you've got a little dirt buildup. We want to water it down with some extra thinner. And now I'm just adding a little bit of pigment powder to create some dirt effects here. In this case, I happen to be using light sienna, and we're just going to lightly blot that on there. And lastly, using a little light sienna pigment powder, we're going to put a little bit of dirt And that'll dry obviously a lot lighter. I'm putting it on actually while the actual wash is still on there, and that helps the pigment stick a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off all of these buildings here, and we're going to put one more coat of gray paint on the base plates of the concrete areas, and just a light gray, real light gray, XF19. And then after that is done, we're going to apply a mist coat of XF55 deck tan. It's a very, very light tannish color, and over the gray I think it makes a very good concrete color, because concrete, if you look at it pretty close, is really not much of a gray color. It's got more of a tan in it. So let me pull all these pieces off, and then I'm going to spray all that down, cover all this up of course, and I'll show you what it looks like once we're done. And there is the entire base done up in the light concrete color. The only thing we need to do now is, which I've started to do just in this area here, is to do a little weathering on it. And I want to do very, very light weathering. Mainly going to be using some brown washes like streaking grime, something like that, to go over it and thin down with a little extra thinner like this. And then in just a matter of putting a little bit in these areas, kind of make the cracks and things like that pop up a little bit more. Let's see right here, you can watch how even from far away all that stuff starts to really pop out. And then any of those cracks that we have, we won't highlight those as much because we want to stay away from those. Just picturing dirt and grime building up and all of that. And of course it dries a lot lighter than it looks when you first put it on, so be aware of that when you're putting it on. Always can add more later on. So I'm going to go over mainly the center area here, remembering that the other building is going to cover up all of this area. The first building is going to cover up in here. So we're mainly going to work through the center here to do a little weathering. And then once the buildings get put into place permanently, we do the weathering around those by putting all the different cable reels and boxes and all that other stuff, and of course vehicles too. So there is the mostly completed base now, with the weathered effect on the road as well as the concrete in the courtyard area. I've gone ahead once again, just put the buildings back in place, and a few other things that I'm thinking about doing. I would like to find a guard sentry station that would go right here or right here in the front, maybe with a drop down pole so nobody's allowed in into a sensitive area here without going through the guard gate. So I think Miniart makes a sentry station. I'm going to have to keep looking for that and see. If not, we can just make one from scratch, even just out of some thin wood or something like that. Put a guard out in the front, make it look official. Also, I've got the telephone pole / lights that we will put up in the front here as well. Thinking about putting them on the back side of the wall with the lights coming forward over into the the street area. And actually, I believe the telephone poles or the light poles have lights on both sides, so you can light up this area and light up this area. They don't actually light up, but to make it look as realistic as possible. And I'm going to start on those, and I'm also going to start on one of the Miniart trucks, the 1.5 ton truck, to put into the drive here, and then hopefully I get that replacement building in very, very soon too. Start working on that, and then of course making the extension on there to add. Even if I don't do the rail spur, there are a bunch of other factory buildings to extend this out even further that I think would be pretty cool. Give it a little bit better effect as a larger factory. Like I talked about earlier, obviously this is just like a little piece of this giant factory that could go on for a 1/4 mile in both directions there. But much as we can add on there, I think it'll make it look that much better. Now, as I've talked before, we've talked about doing a tank, calling this a tank factory or a tank parts factory. Lots of different options. Still have not made a decision. All we know is that it is the second workstation here. One option I was thinking about, and I'll just put it by you guys and see what you think. Tell me in the comments down below, is maybe doing a late war experimental factory. And we could produce this right here, the JUEF 126 Ellie. this front airplane here. It has a dolly inside of it here, and I believe we can build this with the wings off, and we could have it like out of the main factory, the wings being built in there, or the fuselage and being pulled out, being pulled over to the side there, maybe to assemble off thing. Just an option. Since I have time in between waiting for the other buildings, I'm trying to come up with as many ideas as possible to what kind of factory we're actually making here. But I'd like to hear from you guys down below. Please go ahead in the comment section down below. Tell me what you think. Are we still thinking about a tank factory or a tank parts factory making tank wheels or tracks or something like that? All kinds of things we could add. And of course, we could always even change it. At one point, I have a Wingnut Wings Junkers D1, I think it's a D1, the corrugated airplane. And I know that one can be built as a one without the wings on. It'd be kind of cool to do maybe a World War I factory producing that Junkers D1. It'd be kind of cool looking right there. Have the wings off on a cart and the fuselage on another one being pulled out somewhere. Just an option on it. So there you go, guys. I want to take this opportunity to thank you as always for watching. And please stay tuned because I have many more videos coming.